Hello, everyone. My name is Marion with DTM Real Talk Channel. It's the channel that you can tune into, have the ability to listen to the thoughts of others about topics all over the world that touch every one of our lives. Everybody goes through basically the same thing. There is nothing new under the sun. So if you're going through, someone else has already been there. Maybe you can find hope. Maybe it's a pathway that can set you on the right road just by tuning in. So DTM Real Talk, just keeping it real. And if you like it, like us at the bottom, subscribe, and let us know just how we helped you. Just keeping it real. Nothing but love. Hello. Good evening. It's a great big Sunday afternoon, and I have so much to tell you. First of all, for those of you that don't know, I have released my first book. It is called Determined to Discover Why. It's now available on Amazon, and you can just go there and order your copy today. Or you can order it from me at nextlevelupconsulting.com. In that case, I can sign it for you, or you can order it from Amazon, either way. But it is my life story of how I experienced the pain of bitterness, the pain of rejection, betrayal, and insecurity, and all of that, and how God brought me through it, just my journey to where I am today. And so I'm sure that you think many times, for the unfortunate things that happen to you, you might wonder why they happen. There's a method to the madness. Well, God had to show me that. And so in Determined to Discover Why, he shows me my entire journey up to where I am now. And the peace that I have today is because of the grace of God. And so anyway, I'm just really excited about that. Order your copy today. But now for the second best news. We have launched DTM Real Talk January 3rd, 2021 this year, and we're coming up on the end of the year in the month of November and December, and it's going to be the month for Kingdom Men. The months for Kingdom Men in November and December. And you're probably wondering, well, what is a kingdom man? I'm glad you asked. A kingdom man. Well, there's a call, a clarion call for kingdom men today, guys. I tell you, God is looking for kingdom men. He is. He's looking for kingdom men today. The absence of a kingdom man in a home has brought so much destruction, so much pain, so much anguish, just so much. And I was listening to some statistics that I actually got from Dr. Evans, and he said, well, the statistics are 63% of teen suicides come from homes that are absent of fathers. 70% of prisoners come from homes that have no fathers. 80% of rapists, homes, no father. 40% of all children are born to single parents, no fathers. 70% of dropouts, no fathers in the home. There is a call, a clarion cry for kingdom men today. Here's the thing. A kingdom man is one who actually has learned to live his life under the lordship of Jesus Christ. You're not a kingdom man just because you go to church. You're not a kingdom man just because you do the right thing. You're not a kingdom man just because you've been married 20 years, 25 years. You're a kingdom man when you can do what God has told you to do. Okay. If you're doing what God has told you to do, then you're a kingdom man. A kingdom man doesn't run his affairs independently of God. He runs them under the instruction of God. He's a representation of God. Does that make sense? I mean, God is looking for kingdom men. You know, the Bible tells us to be not deceived, that God's not mocked. Okay. It says neither fornicators, nor adulterers, nor idolaters, nor effeminates, nor abusers of men of their own kind, nor thieves, nor revelers, nor drunkards, neither extortioners, none of those people will enter into the kingdom of God. But then it says, but such were some of you. But now you're clean, you're washed, you've been sanctified and set apart. Kingdom men, God is calling for kingdom men that have been set apart, that used to be these things, but are no longer. They used to be everything I just said, but they're no longer. So if that's you, then you're a kingdom man. And the month of November and December, guys, this month, we are going to have, beginning tonight, a young man by the name of Otis Dorsey, and he's going to share his story with you, where he was, what he went through, and where he is now. So you guys tune in for the rest of November and December. And if you have a story that you would like to share, and you're a man that's tuning into God's voice, that's listening to God's voice, that's leading your family, that's leading your children, that has led your wife, or leading someone else, leading a church member, leading a neighbor, that God has placed you in somebody's life to be that example of God, you're a kingdom man, that you can listen to the voice of God and impart what God has given you into that person, that child, that boy, that girl, that adult, that husband, that woman, then you're a kingdom man, and that you're following the instructions of the word of God. Yeah, then you're a kingdom man. Now, Otis Dorsey is going to come to us in his own way and share his story, his life story, and how God has brought him to be the kingdom man that he is. Stay tuned. We have Otis Dorsey, and he's going to say hi to the good folks. Say hi to the good folks out there.
Good afternoon, everyone. How art thou?
You get me with that right. How art thou? Thou art fine.
That's good.
Now, I don't know this guy's story, but I just met this guy. How long? When did I meet you? 2 months, 3 months?
I would give it a long 3 months.
A long 3 months. Well,
Yeah.
actually, it's my brother's friend. So yeah. And here's the funny part. We're going out to eat, because my brother says, y'all know I'm a foodie. He said, girl, I got to take you somewhere. It's going to be good. Because he knows I like oysters, right?
Yes.
We go to this restaurant called Mr. Ed, and look now, we're not marketing for Mr. Ed, but y'all could go
There
there.
you go. There you go.
Right. So we go there. And I was off the chart. This guy, he's sitting on, he coming in, and I'm like, where he coming? Who invited him?
Yeah, let's talk about set yourself free.
Set myself free. I be like,
Be true.
who invited him? But anyway, long story short, wonderful personality, good as gold, as much as I know. And I heard you got a story, Otis. I heard you got
Yes. I have a story.
All right. So tell the good folks out there, where you from?
I am originally from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay. Not the Blessed Bank, right?
But anyway, moving right along. I'm from the other side.
You from the other side?
From the other side.
So do you have siblings, parents? Talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. No, I don't have any siblings based on the information my mother gave me.
Oh.
My mother shared with me that I am the only child. My mother shared that she is the only child. But I do have two boys, 2 girls.
Okay.
13 grandchildren, the last count.
Wow.
I have about 17 grandchildren, the last count. And I have, my math serves correctly, I have 6 great grandchildren.
Oh, wow. Bless you. Bless you.
Yes.
You. Wow. So, okay. So you grew up on the East Bank, correct?
That is correct.
And what are you going to talk about today? I don't know what you're going to talk about. What you won't tell the good folks about?
I want to talk about my troubles.
Your troubles.
My difficult times. I want to talk about who am I.
Okay.
That's
See, I know you where you are now. So let's talk about. Okay, so share with the good folks. I'll cut you off if I got a question.
Sure. Well, once again, I thank you for this opportunity, and I know God will be glorified. It's an honor and privilege to take this time out and to share my story so God can get the glory.
Yay.
I want to start off where I come from. I come from a very modest background. I was not raised by my biological mother. I was raised by an older individuals. I was born in 59. That would make me 62 years old. So it's very unique being raised in those times. I was an introvert.
Okay.
I was the only child. I didn't really have an identity because the people who raised me, when I look at them, I didn't look like them.
Okay.
But whenever my mother would come around, I knew who she was.
Your
Even though
biological mother.
my biological mother, when she would
Gotcha.
come around.
Okay, I got you.
So when she come around, at the time, my mother was in her addiction, alcoholism.
Okay.
Nevertheless, anytime my mother would come around, I'll be willing to go wherever she went because I knew who she was. You didn't have to tell me. But the time, I thank God that I was raised by the individuals that I was raised by, Mr. and Mrs. Lily K. Brown. I thank God for them. At the time, I didn't understand why would my mother leave me.
Okay.
And she would go on. And I found out some years later, I was neglected. Thank God for it, but I was neglected. And what do I mean? But I was neglected, but not being spoken to.
Okay.
I just existed. What I'm saying is they never really hugged me. They never really communicated. They really talked at me. Not to take anything away from me. They can only offer me what they received.
That's correct.
They never really said that they loved me, and especially never hugged me, never listened to me. So with that said, for anybody can relate, I live in an imaginary world.
Okay.
For
Let
those
me pause you for a second. Okay, so did your mom like leave you, like give you away, or did she put you up for adoption, or what? How did that work?
She gave me away to individuals who raised her.
Okay.
Yes. They end up putting my mother out, but I found this much later on.
Right,
the reason why, I'll talk about that later on. So my mother would come by, but when my mother left the house, she was green when it came to the streets.
Okay.
But nevertheless, the streets wore my mother out, but God was glorified even with that. So I was neglected. So back then, they had these cars called Hot Wheels. So I was Hot Wheels, and I would play in the sand, and through my imaginary mind, I would build houses out of old wood and cigar boxes and shoe boxes, and I'll imagine that is my family.
Okay.
So that's the life I live, an imaginary life. I really didn't have any friends. I didn't do well in school, not at all. I barely could read. I barely passed first through 8th grade. And matter of fact, in all transparent, I failed the 1st grade because I had some life issues.
Okay.
I can remember my other classmates when we would have events. I was on a basketball team. I always desired to have a family.
Right.
The people who raised me, and once again, I thank God for them, and I'll share with you later on, but they never would come to any of my events.
Right.
So when I would play basketball, whatever I was doing athletically, I would always see other individuals' parents there, and I would never have one there to support me, that I could look in the stands and see that they were there. Right. So I had a very unique childhood. I went to Catholic school for 9 years.
Okay.
And that was pretty much, and I lived uptown. I guess you would call that the 13 water around Napoleon and Magazine area. I went to Catholic school.
Right.
But then.
So let me ask you something. Okay, you talk about imaginary world that you created as a child. So can you remember how long you lived in that world?
I lived in that world until we moved from that area.
About what age was that?
To Gentilly in 1974. Then that's when reality hit me. What I mean is this: in Catholic school, I say respectfully, we acted a certain way.
Okay.
Certain behavior I was not exposed to. I was not exposed to smoking weed. I was not exposed to drinking, smoking cigarettes. I was not exposed to cursing. I was not exposed to talking back to the teacher. I was not exposed to any of those things.
Right.
So what came out of my imaginary world is when I went to public school.
Okay.
And I found out I got a culture shock. And I say respect how children act.
Right.
And evidently I acted different or uniquely because of the way I was raised.
Right.
And as I talked about, I had identity crisis on who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to find out who I was. I was very shy. I didn't know how to express myself.
Sure. I
can remember where we moved at. I had a family move next door to me, and I admired them. They had 5 or 6, 3 or 4 sisters and 5 or 6 brothers, and I admired them because the unity and the fellowship together.
You saw that family, what you desired.
That I sincerely desired.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, back then in 1975, they had a thing called house parties. By the way, I didn't know how to dance, and to the day I really don't know how to dance. But at the time they had 2 guys said they was going to the store. So I said, I'm gonna go to the store. By the way, I'm green. I didn't understand.
Okay.
So once they left the house, they pulled out a white paper wrapped up. It was a joint. So they started smoking it, and they asked me if I wanted some. Of course, I said no in the beginning. But as they continued to walk, I seen a metamorphosis take place within them. They started smiling and what I call laughing or kikiing. So I concluded this: whatever has transformed them, I want to experience the transformation or the metamorphosis
that they
had.
So okay.
Smoking weed, and something happened.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at this white thing and I said, this is what I've been missing. Because all of a sudden I was able to talk.
Okay.
With boldness and straightforwardness. So when I went back.
Wait. So, okay. Now this is quite the contrary that marijuana does for most people. So you smoked the joint and it gave you boldness.
Yes.
And the people I know and me smoked the joint and it put us to sleep.
No, Other than getting the munches, I became very talkative.
Okay.
So when I got to the party, all of a sudden, I wanted to dance. I couldn't dance, but I wanted to dance. And all of a sudden, hey, come on. But with all that said, someone at the party noticed something was very uniquely different about me. So they asked me a question. You look high. And look, I'm smiling like this, eyes red. Mm-hmm. So the individual gave me some Visine. So to get some clear, but once again, quote unquote, I was the life of the party. And I concluded this. I found out who I am when I had this marijuana.
Okay.
So from that moment on, I pretty much smoke weed every day.
Okay.
I became very popular in the neighborhood because I found out my identity was based on smoking weed, rolling the weed, buying the weed, hanging out with people with the weed. So I said, I want to hang with these individuals, which I did for many years. If anybody can relate, I concluded the best joint to have was the first one in the morning. Before I do anything. So, but with all that said, it opened up a portal of the enemy to come in.
Yeah.
I can remember I got to this point of smoking weed. I got in that routine, but I never forget. I was looking at the joint, and I said this: I wish I can find something. There I go. That's how the enemy got. Find something that my eyes wouldn't get red, and they couldn't smell it. And it opened up a portal. And what that means is this: someone introduced me to powder cocaine.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. and the door opened wider.
Wow.
Of course, it was just recreational. I was able to do things that I was not able to do, and nobody would know that I'm high, quote unquote, in my mind. My eyes wasn't red, they couldn't smell it, but I had a lot of energy, very talkative compared to being an introvert.
Right.
But as you know, one thing about sin, it only produces more sin.
Right. This is true.
Yeah, so at this point, I was working at a job and support my quote unquote habit that I thought I was controlled over. I started stealing from my job.
So let me ask you this. When I talk to people and they tell me they support their habit, they had to support their habit. What was your amount of money or cash that you had that you needed to support your habit, say on a monthly basis?
That's good. Good question. It started off, I would just get a minimum amount, say $20 when I get paid. It started off like that.
Yeah.
And I was good. But all of a sudden that addiction started dictating to me. And before you know it, I didn't have a limit. It took several months to get to that.
Right. So at what point did you realize you were addicted?
I realized when I was addicted, when I started doing some things that was definitely out of character. At one point, by the way, I just got married to my first wife.
Okay.
Before I got into my addiction, we would always have money in a certain area of the house, had access to.
Right.
Before you know it, my wife at the time was looking for the money. It was gone.
Okay.
And I can justify it. She realized the man she married compared to the man that was with her today was not the same.
Right. Okay. How long did y'all stay married, if you don't mind?
She divorced. We got married in 85. She divorced me in 89.
Okay.
But I brought my wife, everyone affiliated with me, through a living hell. I can remember getting married, being high. I can remember everything taking place. I was physically there, but spiritually and emotionally, I was not there.
Not there. Right.
The addiction had totally taken over my life and it wrecked everyone.
So talk to the folks in this way. So you're saying that you felt that overtaking you and you realized it, but at this point that you knew something was taking over you and that you were out of character, tell the folks, how did you feel about you? Were you confused about it? Were you scared? Talk about that feeling if you can remember.
I started transforming. I started looking different.
Okay.
It got to the point that it got so bad, I started selling things out of my house.
Okay.
My wife would come home, the sofa gone, the refrigerator's gone.
Okay.
It came to the point I was not able to pay the bills in a home after we got married, so we moved in with my ex-wife family, and it got even worse.
Right.
I can remember, as I'm thinking about it, a pretty healthy young man, I got down to 150 pounds.
Wow.
I got down to where I wasn't taking a bath. I got down to the house that the people who raised me left me and my mother. She was staying in the front part of the house, and I was standing, my wife was standing in the back. It got so bad, she ended up leaving the house. It got so bad that my wife, now my ex-wife, she ended up moving back with her mother because it got so bad. It got so bad, the house that I was living in was known as the crack house. It got so bad, I was known as the clucker in the neighborhood, the one who was stuck on. It got so bad that I didn't want to go anywhere no further than my porch. And the reason why, because I didn't want to leave and someone come to the house and want to indulge in some drugs. It came to the point I lost myself. It came to the point that I wanted commit suicide, but I didn't want to die.
Isn't that something? So did you ever try?
Say it again?
Did you ever try to commit
Yes.
suicide?
I can remember being in the back of Charity Hospital in the late 80s. I broke a glass.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to die,
Right,
but I didn't want to live the way I was living.
right.
I
Good
didn't want
folks,
to die.
good folks, let me pause you right there. Good
Yeah.
folks need to hear that. When you're in a state, the state that you're describing, isn't that something how you know that it's wrong? You don't want to live that way. You want to die. You want to do something about it, but you don't want to die. Is that something?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to cut my wrist just enough so I can rush into the emergency room so I don't have to physically act out on the flesh desires on my addiction.
Wow.
I didn't want to die.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to put me in a position that I don't act out on the cravings and desires that Otis had no control over.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Now, the backdrop is this. Before my mother left the house, one of the many things I thank God my mother did, and this is my story for God's glory.
Right.
My mother had me put on the third floor of Charity Hospital, psychiatric ward. What I was doing was crazy, but that's part of the addiction. For sane individuals, the stuff that I was doing was crazy. So I was in the psychiatric ward, third floor Charity Hospital for 14 days. For 14 days, they gave me B12 and fed me. I gained, I think, 14 pounds in 4 days. So once I got out, they exposed me to the AA, Alcoholic Anonymous. I heard what they said, but it was over my head. I had no understanding of what alcoholism meeting was. So I ended up going back into the very house. It was a crack house. So I cleaned the house up. I got rid of everything. Except for the weed paper was in my wallet. Explained that for a minute. So once I came up, the parents of the guys, the people I was involved with, they were so excited that I was the first one to go into a rehab or the psychiatric ward of Charity Hospital. But I was a novice of what taking place. I thought because I physically wasn't doing it, I was okay. Okay. But I only lasted about 10 days. Someone came to my house and I was off to the races again. So I went back and forth. I can remember I got arrested for something, a minor offense. So I ended up going to jail until I went to court. But while I was in there, I had an opportunity to open up a small Gideon Bible. Right. I was in an 8-man cell in CCC, me and another gentleman who was paying tongue for push-up 10s and 20s. Somebody may be familiar with that, just to quote unquote do the time. But this particular day, my cellie was not in the cell, and I opened up the book to one of the Gospels where I was reading that Jesus died on the cross. And that was a new beginning for me. Let's park there. You grew up in the Catholic
Yes.
school.
So did you understand that Jesus died for your sins while you were there, or you just heard it, or how did that work?
No. While I was in Catholic school, I had no understanding.
Okay.
None whatsoever. But something about when I read that in that Gideon Bible, the words came alive.
Okay.
They spoke to me personally.
Gotcha.
And I just believed. Wow. So what I did was when I got out, I wanted to go preach to everybody else.
Okay.
It lasted for a little while, but see, I was not physically and spiritually prepared. Okay. So I went back and forth. I went back and forth with my addiction for many years. I would do good for several months under self-will, but I would find myself going back, dealing with the same people, places, and situations.
Right.
I was still trying to find my identity in who I was.
Right.
I heard about this man named Jesus, but I really want to experience the goodness and the peace and the joy that I've heard and I know that other people have experienced. So I went through that for many years, back and forth. I went to several rehabs. and some of them more than once.
Mm.
And I was still trying to find out who I was.
Right.
So even with that, now I look back on it, how I affected so many others for the worse. How they were looking at, quote unquote, this fine young man that has so much potential, but physically look at it.
Wow.
And I had to deal with that for so many years.
Right. So let me say this. So listening to you, would you say that what you went through, and also that self-inflicted too, what you went through, would you say that added to a lot of searching for your identity and insecurity to the good folks out there?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I thought I could find it in relationships.
Okay.
So I wanted to get involved with the young lady because I would see what she had. And I think once I get with her, I would have what she has. Of course, not work out. By the way, with the relationship with the ladies that have been involved, I end up getting married again.
Okay.
And the same thing happened with my second wife that happened with my first. I brought my addiction in. At the same time we were dating, I was not using. But as I look back, the enemy, I allowed the situation to come up. Before we got married, I started using. So I was numb, just like the first marriage to the second marriage. So it was a failure before it even could potentially be a success.
Wow.
So I drug both of my ex-wives through respectfully to HELL.
Wow.
They loved me. They would follow me. They'll be looking for me. And I'll be running. It came to the point, even my second wife, she said this, I have to let you go because you're killing me.
Wow.
Now, but not only that, I can remember my second wife with my children and my child and my grandchildren and my second wife children. At one point, things were going well because I was in church. I was in a very prominent church. I ended up being deacon. Everybody would come to church. We had our own row. My second wife would be on one end. I would be on the other end. And I experienced the manifestation of God's glory. Came to the point that my ex-wife's son, he wanted to dress like me. He wanted to wear preacher suits. Now, my story is for God's glory. And things were going well overall. But once I got back into my addiction, the family fall apart again. The children would come around and say, Mr. Otis, let's go to church. And I say, no, I'm not going because I'm in my addiction. Wow.
So you were in the church at that time, but in your addiction.
Yes. I started out doing well, but I ended up going back again. And I can remember, thank God for the church. I thank God. And I go ahead and say, Pastor Antoine Barrier and the brothers at the time. I got out the church, and back then they had pagers. I ended up leaving, going my addiction for 1 month, and I got a number on my pager. I never had Pastor Barry's phone number, but I knew that it was important. I made a decision to go back to the church. When I walked in the church, they said this. They will call me blessed man at the time. They said, blessed man, if you wouldn't have came back, the pastor and I was coming to get you. So they embraced me. And I'm forever grateful. They didn't ask me no questions.
Let me stop you right there. That's where you got your name from, blessed man.
Yes, that's where I got my name from.
And guess what, good folks out there? There's a lot more to this story. So the people of God, the man of God, said he was coming to get you if you didn't show up.
Absolutely.
And you showed up. And we want to hear next week what happened after you showed up. This is DTM Real Talk. And we just doing what? Keeping it real. See you next week.
Amen. Amen.
Thanks for watching DTM Real Talk. Be sure to join us for more conversation. And oh yeah, don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe while you're there.